This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio. That's 250 plus markets across the United States of America, and of course nationwide over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, Sirius XM style. Channel 80. Number to call up as always is 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Got a jam-packed show coming your way today. Still hanging around Los Angeles, California, site of yesterday or last night's NBA All-Star festivities. Been a great week out here. Being around the All-Stars, finding out some of the other things worth finding out about. LeBron James, we could potentially be leaning towards Paul George. We could potentially be leaning towards what's happening with the Washington Wizards. Kobe Bryant speaking about the Los Angeles Lakers and questioning their free agent pitches. Something to delve into a little bit extra as well. And of course, the story of LeBron James and Laura Ingraham and what she had to say about him, the Fox News analyst and pundit, commentator, what she had to say about LeBron James, and LeBron James responding to that as well. All that and more will be coming up as the show progresses today, right here at the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. But the first thing to get into is what took place last night inside the Staples Center. Team LeBron won a thrilling victory over Team Steph. They won by a point. Ultimately, in the end, Steph Curry gives up the ball to DeMar DeRozan in an uncomfortable spot. They D him up. He launches a shot. He misses, and Team LeBron comes back from a deficit, and they end up winning. Obviously winning $350,000 for their local charity. The loser donates $150,000 to their local charity. But in the end, I liked what I saw yesterday. And it's worth noting that I liked what I saw. I liked what I saw because I saw more effort. Some people wouldn't give it some people would say it was a B or a C plus or whatever. I give the All-Stars an A because I wasn't looking for elite basketball to be played. I'm not looking for something like that in an exhibition game with star-studded talent, like an all-star festivity. I'm not looking for that. What I'm looking for is for guys to step on the court and actually show some effort. Not just have a layup line or a dunk line, but guys actually show up on the court and defend a little bit. Try and block a shot. Try to defend. Try to prevent somebody from getting into the paint. Try to do all of those things. Don't make it as easy as it has been, because the reality is that the All-Star festivity had regressed to such a point that, it was so flagrantly obvious that there was such an absence of effort, it became downright disrespectful. And that's the key thing to be pointed out here. It became downright disrespectful. When you're asking people whether it's other stars, movie stars, rap artists, and all of this other stuff, when you got people pouring their efforts and their money in the NBA All-Star weekend, particularly the NBA All-Star game, and the thanks that they receive is such a flagrant absence of effort, that's a problem. And this is one of those days you give LeBron James credit in the world. He deserved the MVP, finished with the game out 29 points. All right. Lillard and DeRozan had 21 apiece for Team Steph. But you give LeBron James all the credit in the world because he came out there running up and down the court all night long. Effort was everywhere. Dunks, passes, rebounds, etc. And that's what you want to see. You want to see somebody that goes out there and cares and does things that you normally wouldn't see. Or even if you did see it to some degree, it's okay. That was the biggest thing to me. And when I looked at it from that perspective, I was very, very happy with All-Star Weekend. I thought the effort was there. It wasn't too much effort because you're not playing for your team. You're not trying to win regular season games or a playoff series or anything like that. But if you could go a little bit hard playing in the summertime, while you're gearing yourself up for a season, why the hell can't you go a little bit hard playing in front of a packed house? And they were reminded of that yesterday or last night. And that's what I appreciate. I really, really do. I like that part of it all. Didn't bother me one bit. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. So I was very, very pleased about that. The slam dunk contest, look, it was good. It wasn't awful. It was good. But was it like some of the contests of years past? No. Everybody talks about Jordan and Dominique or the Spud Webbs or, Vince Carter or Kobe Bryant or Tracy McGrady. I got news for y'all. It wasn't even Zach LaVine versus Aaron Gordon. It was decent, but Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine did some special stuff in the dunk contest. And I missed them. I missed them bad Saturday night. It would have been nice to see them. 3-point shooting contest, Devin Booker showed up. Lights out in that last round. That's why he won. Klay Thompson, I was hoping he would win it, but it didn't happen. Wasn't meant to be. But the way I look at it, that's just where I'm at with it. And by the way, give some props and some thanks to Klay Thompson because he's competed in the 3-point contest even though he was a member of the All-Star team. So I appreciate him participating in both nights. That's big of him. I liked it. Would have liked to have seen Steph Curry as well. You're considered the best shooter in the world. Why are you not competing in the 3-point shooting contest? What's the matter? Your shoulder's going to get tired? If there's one thing I hold against LeBron James, is that LeBron James has never participated in a slam dunk contest. He's the only athletic, above the rim caliber superstar that I can think of in NBA history who has never participated in a dunk contest. That part is not good. Not at all. What is good is what he had to say in response to Laura Ingraham for Fox News Channel. That was good. Because LeBron James could have sat idly by, said what he had to say in his interview with Kevin Durant, along with Kerry Champion. That would have been nice. He could have left it right there. But once Laura Ingraham told him to shut up and just dribble, LeBron didn't just sit idly by and take that comment. He was asked about it, and he had something to say. And here it is. Listen up.
I get to sit up here and talk about social injustice, equality, and why a woman on a certain network decided to tell me to shut up and dribble. So, thank you, whatever her name is. I don't even know her name, but I appreciate. What is it?
Nobody knows.
Oh, Tiago says no one knows, and that's perfect because I get to sit up here and talk about what's really important and how I can help change kids, not only in America, but in Brazil and England and Mexico and all over. So thank you.
We will not shut up and dribble. That is something that's very minute in the grand scheme of things of how we live everyday life. And we will continue to be, greater than, anything that will try to, depict us and bring us down. So, at the end of the day, we want to continue the conversation going. And for me here, sitting here as a role model, as a leader, as a father, as a friend, as a husband, and as a son, and many more, I will continue to lend my voice and continue to live my efforts and my, the things of to help, the greater cause. So.
That was LeBron James. You'll hear what I have to say about that and so much more in a minute. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. That was Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Attention shoppers, clean up on aisle 14. Clean up on aisle 14. Someone dropped a jar of pickles. Kosher pickles.
Beatboxing at a big box store. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
A red minivan has the lights on in the parking lot.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Geico.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
16 minutes past hour number one back here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Number to call up as always is 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. One of the other things that I noticed yesterday, it was a couple of things that was interesting to me. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook seem to be getting along. I applaud Kevin Durant for acknowledging he may have screwed up their relationship a little bit due to communication or lack thereof. LeBron James and Kyrie were getting along. All-Star weekend, everybody trying to diffuse all of this. First of all, I don't believe it. That's number one. There's always going to be a level of I wouldn't say hostility, because you're men and you move on and situations are what they are and they can't be changed. And if there's anybody that can get over something like that, it's two guys that are millionaires and are highly successful in their chosen professions. The flip side to it, however, is this. I think that it's healthy for the game of basketball to have those hostilities. I don't want to see Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant getting along during the season. After the season doesn't bother me, but I don't mind their hostility showing against each other on the basketball court. I think that's great. I think that's absolutely positively great. That's the bottom line. So I don't have a problem with that at all. And I think that, I don't want to see, with LeBron and Kyrie and everything that happened, who the hell wants to see them hung in and singing Kumbaya now? What does that do for the game of basketball? What does that do for the playoffs to look forward to? What does that do for all of that? That doesn't do anything. I want to see all of that. That's just me. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's the number to call up. Let's go to Jeff in Brooklyn. You're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hi. How's it going, Stephen A?
I'm all right. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I appreciate you taking my call, but the main thing I really wanted to talk to you about was the whole issue with LeBron and the Fox News anchor.
Go ahead.
I just feel like I understand your plight. I understand you're a professional and you want to maintain your respect and your level of professionalism about this matter. So I get your position and how you don't want to disrespect or attack this lady, but I don't understand how it's not really highlighted at the fact that her comments were highly racially insensitive.
Because she told Jimmy Kimmel to shut up and make us laugh. She told Robert De Niro to shut up and act. She told the Dixie Chicks to shut up and play music. The black person that she talked about, that is LeBron James and Kevin Durant at that particular moment in time, are not the first people that she told to shut up and do something to.
Understandable. But in a climate that we're in today, how could she not know? No.
You don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. You asked a question. I answered you directly. You don't like it, so make your statement. But the bottom line is what she did to them, although I found it racially insensitive, because you have to understand and know how that's going to be received. The flip side to it is that when she can come up with a plethora of white individuals in their chosen profession who she told the same exact thing to. In other words, LeBron James does bounce a basketball. So she said, shut up and dribble. Robert De Niro does act. So she said, shut up and act. Jimmy Kimmel is a comedian. So she said, shut up and make us laugh. A musician, the Dixie Chicks, I think it was, or whatever. She said, shut up and play music. What I'm saying is she has plausible deniability as to whether or not it was racial. And I'm saying to you that I understand that. Now, do I think it was racially insensitive? You're damn right I did. I do. And that's what I stated on the show on several occasions this morning. But you got to man up and recognize that when she highlights a bunch of people she has told to shut up and do their jobs, you have to understand that a black athlete isn't the only person she did that to. You have to understand that.
Understandable, very understandable. And I appreciate you for highlighting that for me to understand. But at the same time, it has to be also highlighted that the person that she is in defense of, which is our president, with all due respect, this is the same man that clearly insulted a large population of American citizens by telling women that it's okay to grab them by the you-know-what.
Hold on, wait a minute. That is absolutely true, which is something I've also pointed out. But her response is, and has always been, while she doesn't condone the behavior of the president, she likes the fact that he's an anti-establishment guy, and as a result, that matters to her more than his behavior.
Yeah, see, that tells you right there where our country is.
Well, what do you got to say next, man? The sky is blue?
No.
I mean,
no.
who doesn't know that? We all know that.
It doesn't make it right, Stephen A. Just because.
Who said it was right? Who said it was right? Who? Tell me the person that said it was right.
No one.
Who is
no
the
one
person?
said it was right. But that's why it has to be highlighted. What she's doing is.
Well, let me ask you a question. LeBron has spoken out against it. D. Wade has spoken out against it. Chris Paul has spoken out against it. CNN and MSNBC have spoken out against it. The commissioner has spoken out. The NFL, the NBA players executive director has spoken out about it. Chris Long has spoken out about it. First Take has spoken out about it. All the other shows on all the other networks have spoken up about it. Who the hell else needs to highlight it? Who are we missing, Jeff? Who did we leave out?
No, well, listen, I agree with you. But when I heard Will Kane say that he doesn't believe that what she said was racially insensitive.
That's his belief. Will Kane is a white guy from the South who's a conservative, who doesn't necessarily vibe with everything that conservatives say or do. He's his own independent thinker, or at least he prides himself in being that. But that's how he feels. See, what we have to do is graduate to a point where we have to understand that people feel differently. Let me be very, very clear in what I'm about to say. I am never taken completely aback by the fact that somebody who doesn't happen to be black doesn't have black sensibilities. That's the one thing that annoyed me about the whole Colin Kaepernick situation. Your argument is against what's going on in our country. But you are protesting on a field of play in the NFL and wonder why an NFL owner would have a problem with you. The NFL owner is like, we didn't do this. We didn't do something that should enable you to negatively affect our ratings and our bottom line. We didn't do this. So if you're not protesting us and you're not saying that we did this, why should we be okay with you negatively affecting our bottom line? Now, no matter what we believe on it, we can't deny that that's a valid argument on their part. An owner has a right to make that argument. If you're not protesting me, Jeff, and you don't have a problem with me, and it's the system that you have a problem with, but the platform in which you used to protest me, to protest those things rather, affected my bottom line, and I didn't do this, why should I not have a problem with you?
Stephen A.
We got to ask that question.
That's a valid question. But at the same time, the Colin Kaepernick situation is even more sensitive because it affects a large population of our community.
Once again, Jeff, how old are you?
I'm 30 years old.
You got to grow up, bro, because you're not hearing me. I'm not disagreeing with your point. I'm saying someone has a right not to pay attention to it if they're not you and they're not affected by you. If I am a white billionaire and I am not subjected to the transgressions or the trials and the tribulations that the black community goes through, chances are I'm not going to have your same sensibilities. You're a 30-year-old black man. Am I right, Jeff?
Yes. Can I ask you one last question?
Hold on. You're a 30-year-old black man, right?
Right.
Well, what if I'm 67 years old and I'm white and I'm a billionaire? Whatever sensibilities I have, if you don't relate to it, should I hold that against you?
So, yes. At the same time,
I should hold that against you? I should hold that against you. If I'm a 67-year-old white man that has no relation to you whatsoever, you're trying to tell me you expect me to share your same sensibilities?
Yes, because we're all human at the end of the day. We all bleed.
Goodbye, Jeff. Goodbye, Jeff. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. I've given Jeff enough time. I'm not going to waste my time with that. More of the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio in a minute.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Tell you something. I'm looking at these possible scenarios on ESPN.com where LeBron James could land. Seems likely he'll stay in Cleveland, but the Los Angeles Lakers are a possibility because of their cap space. Another team could be the Philadelphia 76ers, 4 highest paid players this season coming off the books in July. So Philadelphia will enter the summer with close to a max cap slot. So if you got that along with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, I still can't see it, but it's worth noting that, you hear about Houston. Daryl Morey will have to put some tricks out of his hat. Of course, you hear about the Lakers, who already have max space. And now you hear about the Philadelphia 76ers as well. Very, very interesting. No question about it. We'll talk about that more as the show progresses. Get the feeling of being rewarded with gold status at Shell with the Fuel Rewards program. Download the Fuel Rewards app. Join and start saving 5 cents a gallon today. It's amazing, as I'm sitting here in L.A. doing the show, that the possibilities for L.A. are endless. Not just do you have space for 2 max contracts, you also have Jerry West with the Clippers, constantly looking to make things happen, who's cultivated a good relationship with LeBron James. They were talking last night, in fact. I saw them. So you can look at it from that perspective, and that can't be ignored. Houston, Daryl Morey can never be slept on. Philadelphia is a possibility. LeBron James in the news, dominating the headlines, no question about that. Stay tuned. Still listening live at Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Let's go to Carlton and Tampa. You're live with Stephen A. Good afternoon. Hey, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Stephen A?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for calling. What's up?
All right. As a 60-year-old white guy, who is not a fan of Donald Trump, did not vote for Donald Trump, I want to see if I can get something straight here, okay? Yes, according to Michelle Roberts, and she's the executive director for the National Basketball Players Association, okay? Correct. I'm reading a quote from your program today. Between LeBron's 40 million followers and Kevin Durant's 17 million followers on Twitter, Laura Ingraham has now introduced herself as intolerant and narrow-minded. And yet LeBron, according to his anti-Trump comments where he basically said Donald Trump doesn't give a F about the people, that's somehow not being introduced as intolerant and narrow-minded because, of course, 60-something million people voted for Donald Trump. So the fact that LeBron disagrees with those 60 million, that's not intolerant and narrow-minded. But Laura Ingraham, because LeBron has 40 million followers and Kevin Durant has 17, she's now intolerant? Can you explain that to me?
Well, listen, I can try, Carlton, and especially when it comes to you, because to be quite honest with you, you're worthy of the discussion. You contribute to the show. You call in all the time. I find your conversations to be incredibly stimulating and educating, and I respect the hell out of you. So I can try. I think that when we listen to LeBron or people from minority communities talk about the president, it talks about 2 things it's primarily focused on. His disposition and his behavior. I think that's what it's primarily focused on. I would agree with folks who come to the defense in terms of trying to draw comparisons or what have you, Carlton. If you heard athletes and others getting into the weeds about policies and decisions that he's made pertaining to policies without further understanding how deep it goes, having a clear clear understanding of what he's trying to do and why, and they made positions based off of that. If I heard them talking about Republicans, I would get where you're coming from. But what they're talking about is they're talking about his behavior, his dispositions, his willingness to appear to be divisive on many occasions, which is what a lot of people have pointed to. But more importantly than anything else, Carlton, what they're also alluding to is how these same conservatives once upon a time would speak out adamantly against anyone else whose behavior remotely mirrored such things, but yet seem a bit more tolerant where he's concerned. And that's where the consistency comes in on a part of people who speak against Trump, because it's rare that I've heard anybody speak against his policies other than bringing up immigration because of the wall. That's about it.
Well, see, people nowadays impute racism every chance they can to make political points.
I agree with that.
Max Kellerman today goes on and on about all these white demographic groups that voted in the majority for Donald Trump. Max fails to, of course, point out that 95% of African Americans voted for Obama in his first run for the presidency, far higher than that demographic typically votes Democratic, too. So that somehow is not racism, but when white Americans vote for somebody Max doesn't like, there's a racist slant to it, according to Max. It's these people that want to see racism everywhere.
Well, let me interject because I want to get your opinion. I want to share my opinion with you about something, and I really would like you to respond to this, Carlton. I am of the mindset, as a black man, as an African American, I don't think everything is about race. Even when something appears racially insensitive, I think it could be born of ignorance as opposed to some vicious, malicious, racist rant or something along those lines. I don't know Laura Ingraham. I would not call her racist. I would not do such a thing. I met her once, which was just a couple of weeks ago at the NFC Championship game for the Eagles and the Vikings. Seemed very nice to me. I happen to think that she's a highly competent and intelligent commentator who knows what she's talking about. But I also have to hold her accountable for the fact that you have to know in the times that we're living in, considering our history, considering the plight of African Americans in this country, how such a statement would be inhaled and absorbed, and to be insensitive or aloof to that reality it also spells trouble. And there's like Carlton will call up here and explain certain things, but in the process of being very vehement and adamant about your position, you don't negate or ignore how it's going to be received in the process of explaining what you have to say. And when others are willing to do or not willing to do that, particularly in the climate that we're living in, that does raise a red flag.
See, I do ignore it, Stephen A., and I'm going to tell you why. We have an industry now that uses perceived microaggressions against them as weapons against the opposition. Everybody is offended by everything now. Again,
I agree with that.
You have millions of people that get offended by you every single day, and I don't expect Stephen A. to kowtow or change his integrity and his opinions one iota because of these people. So I'm sorry if people impute that Laura Ingraham had a racist slant to her. That is their filter. That's a problem with their filter. It is not a problem necessarily with her, and I don't know what's in her heart, but the idea that other people think they do is their filter is off. That's the problem.
But you can say that. You can say that, and I understand the vantage point that you're coming from, Carlton. But the flip side to that is that it emanates from. If it was Laura Ingraham talking about LeBron James because of her and LeBron James, that would be entirely different. The problem is that it's because of somebody who happens to be the president that she supports. It's also a same president that basically, for all intent and purposes, as I alluded to in my final take today, Carlton, this is a guy that leaned more towards democratic ideals as opposed to conservative ideals. Usually that's somebody that she would speak against, but all of a sudden it's altered because of this particular candidate. And so when you have somebody that has conducted himself from a behavioral perspective that's not statesman-like, not ambassador-like or anything like that, and it happens to be the leader of the free world who impacts over 350 million American lives, not to even mention what's abroad, then that's going to be absorbed entirely differently than just two people who are expressing themselves based off of their viewpoint. She does have an obligation, as do I or anybody else, to operate under that premise. And that's not compromising yourself. That's just being sensitive to what's going on and making sure that you're about the business of being heard and not listened to. I'll give you the last word, Carlton.
Well, see, it boils down to me is LeBron is trying to make political points with his followers or the people that think in like-minded manner to him, rather than trying to somehow build a bridge to this president, and maybe LeBron could actually get something tangible done more so than he already does. And I give him all the credit in the world for doing what he does in the communities he cares about. But if he could somehow build a bridge to this guy in the White House, because we got 3 more years of this guy, no matter whether you like it or not, unless something comes out of left field here, okay? If he could build a bridge, maybe he could get even more done. And so I think he's playing to his base, and Laura Ingraham is playing to her base, and they're just going at each other, and I don't fault one more than the other,
That's fair, but my last question to you would be this. Have you seen anything from this president that says you can build a bridge towards him?
I don't see anybody on the other side trying, though. I literally don't. All they do is insult them.
You know what, Carlton? That's fair. That's an argument that can be made. That's an argument that can be made, and one could argue that politicians on the left are definitely fueling that type of mentality, because obviously it's something that could potentially work with them for the midterm elections. You might have a point. You might have a point, Carlton. I appreciate the call, buddy. Thank you so much. Very valid points. Very valid points by Carlton. Can't summarily dismiss it. I can tell you that much. 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. More to Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio in a minute.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it.
Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Since Carlton brought up, to some degree, Laura Ingraham and LeBron James, I did a final take on First Take this morning. I'd like you to hear it. Listen to my final take about the Laura Ingraham, LeBron James controversy. Take it away, guys.
Say what you will about Laura Ingraham, but she is not a stupid woman. She's smart, she's educated, and she's very accomplished. So when she tells the world's greatest basketball player to shut up and dribble, then follows that statement up by doubling down on a podcast calling LeBron James' statement about President Trump, quote, barely intelligible, not to mention ungrammatical, please know Miss Ingraham knows exactly what she's doing. Sure, the pursuit of good ratings are a part of it. Catering to Trump's base, which essentially is her base, unquestionably doesn't hurt. But in the end, doesn't it come down to Ingraham really telling the rest of us to shut up? If you really think about it, that's the only thing that actually makes sense, y'all. Who doesn't know that LeBron James is the best in the world at what he does? Who doesn't know about his philanthropy through his foundation and beyond? Who doesn't know about his I Promise program that benefits 1,200 at-risk students in his hometown of Akron, Ohio? Or the parents he's helped get GEDs? Or the $41 million earmarked for full-ride scholarships at the University of Akron for Akron public school students who go through the foundation's I Promise program? All of which was reported in today's USA Today. Of course Ingraham knows. And guess what? The problem is not even that she appears as if she doesn't care at all about LeBron's accomplishments. The real problem is the depth she was willing to sink to just to make her point. And doesn't that remind us all of somebody we know? Brilliance isn't required to figure out the ramifications of telling an iconic black athlete to shut up and dribble. As Molly rhetorically asked earlier, wouldn't it be the equivalent of telling a woman to shut up and stay in the kitchen? Yes, LeBron has money, but Trump has more. Plus, based on many noted positions, combined with his donations, one could argue he has a background more favorable to Democratic ideals than conservative. Plus, he was a reality TV star. So where was Laura Ingraham's proclamation telling President Trump to shut up and go back to The Apprentice? Before he was president, of course. And as for Ingram's words about how no one voted for LeBron, wouldn't it be safe to say that with his background, his sensibilities, his philanthropy, and his 40 million Twitter followers, combined with the notion of him running against Trump, that he'd get, say, 62 million votes? We likely know the answer to that, too, don't we? I firmly believe Miss Ingraham knows. So it begs the redundant question. Why would she say specifically what she said, knowing how it would be received, how it would be interpreted, and ultimately how inflamed it would become? It's because she didn't care, didn't give a damn at all. In the end, isn't that the real problem? And that's before we even touch on the racial insensitivity portion involving the matter.
That was my final take on First Take today. First Take airs every weekday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific on ESPN. You know, all of those subjects are dicey, but I always appreciate when the Carltons of the world call in. You know, when Jeff in Brooklyn called in, it wasn't that he was unintelligible or anything like that. It was that it reeked of emotion. You can't legislate what's in people's heart. He's like, why is there not a focus? when all we have done is focus on what Laura Ingraham said. We got to rise above it somehow, some way.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airways of ESPN Radio, 250 plus markets across the United States of America and growing. And of course, nationwide over ESPN channels on Sirius XM, Channel 80. Number to call up as always is 888-729-3776. That's 888 say ESPN. A couple of stories I wanted to get into for hour number 2. Number 1 was some NFL item involving the New England Patriots. Devin McCourty, quarterback for the New England Patriots, been there for years, about a couple of Super Bowl championships on his resume. He's qualified. He had this to say about Malcolm Butler, his teammate that was unceremoniously benched by Bill Belichick. He had this to say. He said, quote, "We all knew he wasn't starting all week. That wasn't a secret to the guys on the team." This is according to Devin McCourty, who told the New Jersey Advanced Media. "I get why people are fishing. The guy played 98% of the plays in the regular season. I just hate that for him character-wise going into free agency. You know, all the things that's being said is just not true. As far as I know, and I was there all week, not one time did anything come up." It says here, despite McCourty's contention, one Patriots defensive starter reiterated to ESPN's Josina Anderson on Monday that he, quote, definitely didn't know that Butler wasn't going to play in the Super Bowl. The starter and one teammate previously told Anderson on February 5th that they weren't made aware of the Patriots' plan for Butler. Let me tell y'all something. I don't believe Devin McCourty one bit. I think he's lying. Now, let me say this. I don't think there's anything malicious towards Malcolm Butler. I think he's doing it to protect Malcolm Butler. I think he's doing it because he wants Malcolm Butler to get his money. I think he's doing it because he wants Malcolm Butler to go on with his life and prosper in free agency. I think he's looking out for his brother and his teammate, and I don't have a problem with it. But it's not about McCourty. It's about that damn Bill Belichick. And I don't care what anybody says. Let me tell you something. I love and revere Mr. Robert Kraft. Everybody knows that about me. I respect that man. I have a great relationship with him. He's a good man. Okay? And Tom Brady's arguably the GOAT. And Bill Belichick, I've never said an incendiary word about this man. This man is the greatest coach of the modern era. And to me, that cannot be disputed. But what I absolutely positively have a problem with, that I am not going to let go of, is that I firmly believe that Bill Belichick was beyond cruel. I think that what he did is pretty damn hard to forgive. And I think that it's important and it's imperative that somebody say that. If I am a free agent, I got to raise my eyebrow and think twice before I go and play for Bill Belichick. I really do. I can't sit by and tell you that that's cool. I really, really cannot. I got to tell you that I believe firmly that Malcolm Butler was on that sideline in tears while the national anthem was being played because he didn't find out until around that time that he was not going to be playing. That's the issue here. Now, if you want to get into the minutia of it all, because McCourty's words were precise. Maybe he's not lying about this. He said, quote, "We all knew he wasn't starting." Now, if you want to sit there and hold firm to that, that's fine. Don't tell me anyone knew that somebody who played 97.8% of the snaps for New England this year, that played 100% of the defensive snaps against Tennessee in the divisional playoff game, that played 100% of the snaps in the AFC Championship game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who delivered the Super Bowl for the New England Patriots with that interception of Russell Wilson's pass in the Super Bowl. Don't tell me that guy, Malcolm Butler, No one knew he wasn't going to play one single defensive snap. That's utterly ridiculous. It's a lie. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And to me, for Bill Belichick to do something so undeniably cruel, I don't want to hear that's the Patriots' way. I understand it's the same Bill Belichick that cut a dude the day before the Super Bowl. He did that once before. But that's the lone case in which he did that. And he let the guy go. Meaning that there had to be something really, really wrong with that guy. He let him go. Cut him from the team. That's entirely different than having a guy that plays damn near every snap for you all season long. And then you pick Super Bowl Sunday to tell him he's not going to play. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I never thought the day would come when I'd say this, but I can't understand how anybody would want to play for Bill Belichick after that. If I were Tom Brady, I would look at Bill Belichick like, really? I mean, damn, coach, really? That you'd have to be that cruel? That's just cruel. Don't tell me he gave you the best, Max Kellerman and others. Strictly a football decision. He gave them the best chance to win. Really? I can understand that if it's just a matter of him starting. Eric Rowe went out there and got burned. And oh, by the way, acknowledging he didn't play that bad in the Super Bowl. I'm not trying to dog Eric Rowe. But Derrick Rowe that was a bad day for him. And even then, Eric Rowe went out and said, I had no idea that Malcolm Butler wasn't going to be playing. Yes, he did. Robert Kraft, the owner, said he had no idea. And Bill Belichick usually communicates with him. He had no idea that Malcolm Butler was going to play. Or was not going to play. Come on. I watched the post-game coverage with my man Christian Fourier and others after the Patriots lost the Super Bowl. They didn't know he was going to play. And everybody lamented Bill Belichick's decision. Even Teddy Bruschi came on First Take, a 3-time Super Bowl champion with the Patriots, and acknowledged he had a problem with that decision by Bill Belichick. It was cruel. It's the kind of cruelty that should make any player think twice about playing for Bill Belichick. So I can bust my tail for you for years. I could be a prospective free agent, listening and watching you lowball me while you go out and give Stephon Gilmore 5 years, $65 million. I can still come back and play 97.8% of the snaps in a regular season, 100% of the snaps in the playoffs, and then find out right before the Super Bowl you ain't gonna play me. Really? I don't care what anybody said. This ain't about Bill Belichick's coaching acumen. This is about how cruel this man can be. That's what this is about. I don't know if I can play for the man. I really, really don't. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. I mean, think about that. It doesn't get any bigger than the Super Bowl. I don't care how many times you've been there. It doesn't get any bigger than the Super Bowl. And for somebody to indiscriminately, so pragmatically, so nonchalantly take that moment away from you after you worked that hard to get to that point and produce for him all year long. And I'm not saying Malcolm Butler had the greatest year because he didn't, but damn it, they won 12 to 13 games and he was on the field 97.8% of the times. And then he can't play one defensive snap in the Super Bowl? Ladies and gentlemen, why should anybody want to play for a coach that would do that? I really, really mean that. More of the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio in a minute.
Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking.
Fate is a fickle master.
What?
The future is uncertain.
Okay, and what's my account balance?
The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril.
Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. A couple of news reports out there right now about how the New York Jets are so desperate for a quarterback that not only do they want Kirk Cousins from the Redskins, they're willing to fully guarantee his contract. So essentially, it's one of those situations where if the Jets sign him for $100 million, it's not 60 or 70 million in guarantees. They'll guarantee 100 million for Kirk Cousins. And I must confess to you that I have mixed emotions about that. On one hand, I'm like, hell no. What the hell has Kirk Cousins ever won? What has he ever won? There's no way in hell that I'm going to give Kirk Cousins $100 million in guarantees. Okay? I'm not doing it. Because it might set my franchise back. And it sets a bad precedent. But here's the flip side. I'm the New York Jets. I'm the New York Jets. I can't find a quarterback to save my life. And if I could get me a quarterback, that would be special. That would help me a great deal. And it would, you know, in its own way, it would set the franchise forward because at least we have somebody we could give the reins to. Tough spot. Tough decision. I can understand both sides of it. I really, really can. 888, say ESPN. Back to the calls we go. Mike in Denver, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, man.
How you doing, man? I want to talk about the All-Star game and then that Kirk Cousins real quick. Man, this was the best All-Star weekend in a while, Stephen A. I enjoyed the game, you know, especially towards the end. They really got at it. But throughout the game, it wasn't just no let you score, you know, tactics that they was doing. And then, did you catch the Legends Luncheon?
I did not.
Brunch that they do?
I did
Stephen
not.
A, you got to catch it, man. It was so beautiful. Jerry West got a legend honor. And he gave a speech, man, that was out this world.
Okay.
The speech was geared around, you know, African Americans in basketball now.
Okay.
And I mean, the man was so sincere and honest with what he did. You know, he got emotional, and it kind of got, you know, other people emotional too. But I got to give big props to him for that, man.
Well, listen, let me tell you something right now. I'm right here in Los Angeles right now. I saw Jerry West yesterday at the All-Star game. He and I speak whenever, whenever we run into one another. But he's a phenomenal basketball mind. He's a savant. He knows the game. And I have profound respect for what he has accomplished as a player and as an executive, arguably the greatest executive in NBA history. And so when you look at it from that perspective, for him to speak about things, considering the fact that he played in the 60s and 70s and has been an executive for many years and now as a consultant, he's one of the brilliant basketball minds we've seen. And some of the things taking place with the Clippers right now, clearly he knows what he's doing, and it's just undeniable.
Yeah, and that was beautiful, like I said. And then, you know, to move on to the news you just broke about with Kirk Cousins. And like you say, you torn on both sides. Come on, man. You can't be torn on both sides. They do that with Kirk Cousins, man. It's ridiculous, man.
Well, you can say that, but who the hell has been the Jets quarterbacks? I mean, a legitimate argument could be made, man. They ain't had a quarterback since Richard Todd. I mean, come on, man. I mean, listen, you got to get something. You got to get something. I mean, my God, how many decades have they been without a quarterback to build their franchise around? I'm not talking about somebody who just shows up for a year or so. I'm talking about a quarterback to build your franchise around. Who the hell have they had? They haven't had anybody. And that's where it becomes a problem. But I got to run, Mike. I appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. Let's go to Joe in Ohio. You're live with Stephen A.
Hey,
good afternoon. How are you? Good morning. What's up?
I'm good, man. Hey, while on hold, I got to listen to your final take that you did on First Take, and it kind of hit notes on what I was going to say a little bit. I agree with you 100% with what you said, and that was what I was going to call in about it. But if Laura would have just said, shut up and play basketball, would that have been would it get all the hype that it's getting? But you kind of touched base on that with those comments. Like I said, I agree with. I think it was an attention grab a little bit too. So I agree with that part of it too. And then on a lighter note, and I'll let you go and comment, but what do you think about those NBA primetime commercials with that dude rapping and the other dude singing? I can't stand them personally. They kind of get, I got to turn the volume down on a little bit, a little too corny for me. So,
well, yeah, listen, it's not bad. It's all a matter of your taste or whatever. I've seen better, but I don't want to take anything away from what those guys are doing. It's positive. There's nothing negative about it. It's just things that we found that have been more compelling from time to time. That's all. But I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Let's go to Terrence in Virginia. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Terrence?
How are you, Stephen A?
I'm all right. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I was calling regarding your caller, the 60-year-old white guy who was referencing saying that I just wanted to say that there is some level of racial relevance to the Laura Ingraham and LeBron James situation. And simply because I feel that people still have a problem with, blacks in power or black men in power. And I think that's something that's constantly overlooked. I don't want to say that it's all race, and I heard your final take as well earlier. It's not all race, but for her to just say shut up and dribble, that has some racial, undertones that I think should be addressed. And I also heard the gentleman say, well, it's LeBron's responsibility to build a bridge, et cetera. But it will make you wonder why. Why should it be LeBron's? I mean, that's the question.
Well, he didn't just say that. He didn't say that. That's an inaccurate depiction of what Carlton was saying. What he's saying is that LeBron or anybody who disagrees with Trump seem to be hell bent on speaking out against the president as opposed to trying to build a bridge. So what he's saying is anybody on the left side or who comes across as being leftist in any way, this is their default position, to attack him as opposed to work with him to build a bridge or to build a bridge towards him. He didn't sit up there and say it's LeBron's responsibility. He's saying that all of these folks who speak against the president really don't make the effort to try to build a bridge toward him. It was a very generic and general perspective that he provided in that specific regard.
I understand, Stephen, and you make a great point. But the thing I'm saying is that, it's almost a power argument versus a race argument. And it just seems that if a person or an African-American of power, it's a certain type. So if they appear unapologetic, people have issue with it, in my opinion. And and that's.
But wait a minute. But that's a different subject, because if you're talking about Laura Ingraham, you might have a point. But then if you're talking about Carlton, that's not necessarily the case, because that's not the position that he's taken. And then when we get back to Laura Ingraham, what do you have to say to this, Terrence? I didn't agree with what Laura Ingraham said. I thought it was racially insensitive. I don't think it makes her a racist or anything like that. Please don't get me wrong. But I thought it was racially insensitive because of the times that we're living in, from an historical perspective, the things that have been said about the black athlete and how what she said essentially echoed the sentiments of critics against those very black athletes throughout history. That's my position. But the flip side to it is that what can't be ignored is the fact that she told a comedian, that is Jimmy Kimmel, shut up and make us laugh. She told an actor, that is Robert De Niro, the great Robert De Niro, shut up and act and entertain us. She said the same thing along the lines to the Dixie Chicks and others. Shut up and do X, Y, and Z. So she wrote a bestseller that was basically entitled Shut Up and blah, blah, blah. So when you look at it from that perspective, there is no denying that her words, incendiary or otherwise, was not just geared toward toward the black athlete. She has said it towards everyone. And if we're going to sit up there and denigrate her, then we need to denigrate her for saying it to everyone, as opposed to only speaking up when she says it to a black athlete.
Right. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But I still, you made I understand your point, very eloquent spoken. But I just think that we're in a position where, that's who it was. It was the most notable black athlete on the globe, right? And so to then bring that out and talk about his education or lack thereof, in her opinion, to bring up his education and lack thereof, and then it
well, then that's different because see, y'all will see, this is my point. You didn't say all of that. Now you're getting into the weeds of it, which is definitely understandable, which is why I took a position against her because of how deep she went. All everybody else was focused on shut up and dribble. She said a hell of a lot more than that. And that's not what has been brought up enough. You know, when you sit there and talk about how you going to say he's unintelligible and ungrammatical when she went and spoke on her podcast after she said what she said on her television show. You know, that now you're taking it an extra mile. And that's what she did, and that's what I had a problem with. But I got to run. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. 888 say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. By the way, we'll continue right here with the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Before I get back to the calls, one other item that I wanted to bring up earlier, Kobe Bryant. Speaking about the Los Angeles Lakers and recruiting people to come and play for the Los Angeles Lakers. Well, Kobe Bryant had something to say about that. You all should find very interesting. Listen to this.
You shouldn't need recruiting to come here, right? It takes a special person to want to play for this franchise and take the pressure that comes along with playing for this franchise. The pressure of following Magic's footsteps and myself and like the dynasty that we've had. It takes a special person to do that. And if I need to convince you to come here to carry that legacy forward, you ain't the one to be here.
He's got a point. Listen, the times in the past, I'll never forget when Dwight Howard was hedging back and forth about wanting to stay here and was turned off at the aloof approach and mentality Kobe had towards recruiting him. Kobe's attitude was simple. I'm a 5-time champion. This is arguably the greatest franchise in the history of sports. We win. And we need to convince you. Not only did I beat you in the finals, you've never won a championship. And you got to be convinced. That was Kobe's position. And to elaborate on it further, I know we live in a different age and a different time or what have you, but the palm trees, the sunshine, the beautiful weather, and all of that stuff that comes with it, that makes anybody want to live here. The flip side, or not the flip side, but the other side to it, you know, to augment that point, is the fact that the pressure that he alluded to. When you put on a purple and gold and you are a star, there's an obligation to deliver. There's an obligation to wear that purple and gold and deliver, to be in that purple and gold and be about championships. You ain't coming here just to have fun. You ain't coming here just to relax in the sunshine. You're coming here to win. And if your definition of winning is getting max dollars and getting to the playoffs and being recognized as an all-star, that ain't enough in Los Angeles. Sadly, that would be more than enough in New York. The way the Knicks have looked. But wouldn't be nearly enough in Los Angeles for the Lakers. The thing I think we can't ignore and we have to pay attention to, however, is the Lakers having to compete with Jerry West and the Clippers. Because let me tell y'all something right now. Jerry West is coming. Y'all sit up there and act like Jerry West don't have a plan if y'all want to. Jerry West, right here in Los Angeles, stole Shaquille O'Neal from the Orlando Magic. Stole the most dominant force of our lifetime. Y'all act like y'all don't know if you want to. And prior to getting Shaquille O'Neal, do you remember when Jerry West and the Lakers were actually respectable to the point where it brought him to tears? Because devoid of stars, they still had Nick Van Exel and Eddie Jones and Eldon Campbell and cats like that, and was making noise and playing valiantly? Can't ignore that. Don't sleep on Jerry West, I'm telling you. Don't sleep on Jerry West. I'm just saying. Ray in Jersey, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hi, Stephen A. I want to get back to that thing with Laura Ingraham.
Sure.
I'm not a big fan of hers, but I saw the show in which she rebutted. She called out Jimmy Kimmel, told him to shut up and tell jokes. She told other actors, shut up and act. And listen, people go to I understand you want to, talk out against social injustice, but people turn to sports and entertainment to get away from that stuff. So when LeBron's done playing, go into politics. Go do your thing. But people want to just go and watch sports or watch late
Stop
night.
right there. Stop right there, Ray. Stop right there, because I got a question for you, okay?
Yeah.
I understand your point. It's respected. Please don't get me wrong. I don't even disagree with you to some point. I get where you're coming from. I can understand how folks feel that way. But then why is it that we hold athletes so accountable with everything else? We got to be a role model. You got to help us raise our kids right. You got to present yourself properly. You got to do X, Y, and Z that extends far beyond the court or the field of play. See, where I veer left from your comments is that we act like we allow these guys to live in a vacuum. We do not. What we do is we pull them away from the comforts of sports and require so much more of them when it comes to being contributors to our society. Because of generations on the come up, the behavioral issues, the accountability factor we want them to have, the hard work we want them to put forth, et cetera, et cetera. So we are quick to bring athletes into the mix then. But when they say stuff that makes some people uncomfortable, not all, but when they make some people uncomfortable, then all of a sudden it's a problem and we don't want to hear from them. Where's the consistency when it comes to that, Ray?
Well, listen, I don't believe in that. I believe that kids, their teachers, their parents should be the ones that are schooling them on all this stuff.
That's fair, but Ray, I get that point, and I appreciate you telling me what you believe. But what I'm trying to say is, Ray, you're smart enough to know that even though you believe that, there's a lot of people who don't, and those are the people that have basically brought their heavy hands down upon millionaire athletes who they believe are lucky, not individuals who worked hard and earned their way, but they believe are lucky and privileged to be making the money that they're making, playing a game. Therefore, you owe everything else to us in order to ensure uplifting our society and generations to come with how you conduct yourself, the issues you're willing to tackle, how you behave, what's the right way to go about doing things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So even though you might feel differently, you're smart enough to know that's not reality. The reality is what I explained. And what I explained, since that's reality, can you not then understand how a professional athlete would feel the need to extend himself beyond the court or field of play to take the positions that he takes in order to make that very contribution that people have asked him to make?
Okay. Listen, I agree with you, yes. The only thing is, everything today is like racist, and I do not believe that woman was going down a racial path at all.
Fair enough.
I mean, she's called out other people,
right,
and all different.
Did you hear what I had to say though? But did you hear what I had to say about that subject, Ray?
Absolutely.
Right, because what I said was, I'm not calling her racist by any stretch of the imagination, nor am I saying it was her intent. What I'm saying is ultimately, because of the climate that we're living in, she is too accomplished and too smart not to know how that would be interpreted. And she didn't seem to care. And that's the problem. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think it's because of her calling out other people. I like to give her the benefit of the doubt because she has been an equal opportunity,
That's fair. That's fair. She did call out Jimmy Kimmel. She did call out Robert De Niro. She did call out the Dixie Chicks and others. You're absolutely right about that, Ray. She is consistent in that position. That is true.
Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Your calls to close out the show in a minute. It's Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
All right, I'm going to have to cut your points real quick because I only got a few minutes left on the show. So make your points real quick inside of 30 seconds. Otherwise, I'm going to make it for you. Blake in Arkansas, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead real quick.
Stephen A., you got me fired up. Mr. Butler, if you're listening, let me tell you what you do. You go get yourself a Zipa. If you don't know where to get one, Stephen A. will help you, I'm sure. You wrap it up, you take it to Belichick's office, you knock on the door. When he opens it, looks confused, you knock his ass out. Then you go to the trophy case, and you take back that Super Bowl ring over the Seahawks.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Blake. I appreciate it. We're not condoning violence on this show. All right, let's move on. James in Georgia, you're live with Stephen A. That was funny, though. James, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A., there have been many disgusting things going on this weekend, like the comments between Laura Ingraham and LeBron James. Also, the reactions that happened against Devontae Smith Pelly, I believe his name is.
Yes, that's the hockey player. That's the hockey player for the Capitals at the Blackhawks game in Chicago, where 4 fans had to be removed because of racially insensitive things they said to him. It's sad that still happens in today's day and age, but we all know it's not a surprise. Go ahead.
Yes, so I believe that we should not push that. Throw that as water under the bridge. So, as in this is being Black History Month, and at least something good, actually, really great happened yesterday, other than the NBA All-Star game. That Bubba Wallace finished second in the Daytona 500, something that never been accomplished. So we should actually hold our heads high for that.
All right. Appreciate it. But, but that don't have anything to do with the issues. He's just balling. Or not balling, but, obviously race car driving, did his thing. More props to him. Congratulations. Let's go to Kevin in Pennsylvania real quick. You're live with Stephen A. Go.
Hey, Stephen A. I'd like to say that LeBron James missed an opportunity to let the world know that Ms. Ingraham once said that the United States should shoot all undocumented immigrants trying to enter the United States. Point 2, Donald Trump
All right, yeah, keep going because I don't know anything about that either. Just like LeBron James may not know, but go ahead.
But point number 2, Donald Trump has been documented for racism in his real estate deals by the Department of Justice.
1973. Yes, go ahead.
Point 3, circumstantial evidence of Trump's racism goes when he called for the death of the Central Park 5 for the rape. And then he didn't call for any death penalty for Jeffrey Epstein.
All right, but what does that have to do with Laura Ingraham and what she said to LeBron?
Caller from
what does that have to do with what Laura Ingraham said to LeBron? Well,
it has something to do because the caller said that Trump is accused of racism and there is no racism, and I wanted to show he has a history of racism.
No, he was saying that Laura Ingram's comments were not racist. He didn't say anything about what Trump has, that Trump didn't have anything to do with anything. He said that Laura Ingram's comment he did not find to be racist at all. That's what he said.
I want to make one more point, Steve, and this that a big injustice is being done to Gus Williams, Bobby Dandridge, and Mark Aguirre for not being finalists in the Hall of Fame. They're much more accomplished than anybody up there right now.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. I'll think about that a little bit further. I'm not sure about that at all. You can't sit up there and point about an injustice or whatever. There's no what advantage comes from leaving the best players in the world out of the Hall of Fame. You either think they're a Hall of Famer or you don't. And that's just the way that it is. Bobby Dandridge could ball, no question about it. Gus Johnson for the Seattle Seahawks. I remember, Seattle Supersonics. I'm sorry. I remember him. Downtown Freddie Brown was my favorite, but that's something I'll look into. I'll think about that a little bit more. No question about it, but we got to get on out of here for the day. Thank you for joining me. Looking forward to talking to you in the days ahead. It was a great NBA All-Star weekend. Guys showed effort, and that's all we asked for. Hope y'all enjoyed it as well. Talk to y'all in 22 hours. Peace and love.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.